And I think everyone is very well aware and sees like the steady progress. Now it's building momentum. So what I expect from our fans as we open the season, for all those games, complete and utter lunacy in that stadium.
Hello and welcome. It's always college football. Today is Thursday, May 15th, and we appreciate those of you coming to us from wherever it is you're coming to us from. It's a fun show that we have in store for you today. The head coach of the Miami Hurricanes, Mario Cristobal, will join the show. We'll talk a little bit about their breakthrough season in 2024, how they're going to finish this upcoming year, the addition of Carson Beck, their homegrown recruiting class from 3 years ago. All those guys now are in year number 3. And it feels like Miami, they're in a position to really break through. I know they did last year and they came up just a little bit short, but the best might be coming for Mario Cristobal and the Canes. We'll talk about that. We also are going to dive into the week 1 schedule. Part of what got us down that rabbit hole is the fact that Miami will host Notre Dame on Sunday in what should be one of the biggest matchups of week 1. So we're going to talk about week 1. We have a lot of good games in week 1 that we just want to just a little highlight of. Not going to spend like a ridiculous, not going to break them down in detail and ask our questions like we do in our Thursday breakdowns. But I do kind of want to go through a few and acknowledge that there is an opportunity for us in college football on week 1 that we should really lean into. We'll talk about that. And then the SEC is in the process of exploring the 9-game conference schedule. What does that mean for the future? And is this something they should absolutely be pursuing? We'll talk about that as well, but we'll kick things off with Mario Cristobal, the head coach of the Miami Hurricanes. He's a head coach of his alma mater. What cooler thing is there to say than that? He's Mario Cristobal, head coach at Miami, and they are fresh off. It's amazing to me, Coach, and doing some due diligence for this conversation. How was last year just the second 10-win season in 20 years at Miami? That, to me, as a kid that grew up in the 90s and the early 2000s, feels crazy. But congrats on a great year. But, man, you guys got to be excited about where you're heading.
Oh, without question. I mean, that's that stat right there was one of the reasons when it was or why it was time to get up and come back home and get Miami to where it needs to be all the time and more. Last year was a good start. It was a lot of progress towards what we want to be. And we're excited because, again, the roster keeps getting layered with better and better prospects and talent and whatnot. We feel like our systems are in place, and we certainly upgraded our defense. So we're really excited.
Well, it is pretty amazing how I feel like last year was such a massive step. And yet I know you're not where you want to be, and people will focus on the finish and things like that. But there was such progress made year over year last year. And I think what happened with Cam Ward has now put you guys on the map as like a destination for quarterbacks. We'll get to Carson in a minute, but I know it didn't result in the championship banners that you want to hang in the stadium. But all in all, do you kind of look at last year as a pretty significant step to establishing the future for what Miami is going to be?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, tons of progress and came within inches, of that next step, which we're progressing towards and we're going to get to. You would love playing behind this offensive line, by the way. They protect you well. You have all day to throw the ball. So, yeah, in all different phases and areas, every part of the program, when we first got here, the roster was in rough shape, and Saturdays were rough, man, really, really rough. And year 2, we became competitive, and then year 3, we won 10 of them during the regular season. The other 2 just barely got away from us. So a lot of progress in that respect. And all the areas that need improvement, we've been attacking them as hard as we could possibly get them addressed. And at the same time, a guy like Cam really raises the profile of the university, especially the quarterback position, to give us an opportunity to keep recruiting just really high-level, high-caliber guys at that position, which better than everybody, man. That's where it starts and ends.
I mean, it has to and look, I know that everyone sells the NFL, and everybody for them. Not many people have the accolades that Miami has. You guys had 10 combine invites, get the number 1 overall pick. How much does seeing Cam go number 1 help your program sell not just the vision but the results now here after a couple of years?
It just validates so many of the things that we have been preaching since we got here, and having coached in the SEC, the Pac-12, and now the ACC. What really stands out is that no matter where we've been, we've just done it and built it the exact same way, and it has led to some really high-level performers, has led to championships, and we're very much on track now to take that next step as a program here. So it does nothing but validate the truth that we're going to work relentlessly to get it done, and we're going to find a way to get it done.
Well, I love the blueprint that y'all have used, because you've been able to add pieces via the portal, high level pieces though. I mean, not depth guys. I mean, you're adding high level, game changing pieces in the portal year over year. But at the core of what you guys built is your first recruiting class. Ruben Bain, Mark Fletcher, CeCe Maui Noah. Those are kind of the foundation with which you guys have been able to kind of elevate. So how does it feel now knowing that your first recruiting class are now the leaders and kind of the tone setters within the organization?
No, it's an awesome feeling. I mean, those guys, and they're really good about not paying much attention to all those projections, but we've got a lot of guys that are projected to be high draft picks next year, and they are part of that first class. Our first full cycle of recruits and signees are true juniors this year. So that puts it in perspective of the holes that we had to fill with the use of the portal and one junior college player. But it's a really good blend because some of the portal players have several years. They're like taking a sophomore, So altogether, it's awesome to watch these guys get here when things were rough, and just the steady progress, and now winning double-digit games, and knowing that there's so much more in the tank and so much more to accomplish. That the appetite and the hunger and the drive for it is really strong.
Yeah, it has to be. And it's been fun. I mean, we've been on the call from the very beginning, maybe the lowest point to one of the highest points. And I know that there's plenty of high points to look forward to here in the many years to come. I do want to ask you about your offensive line. We always start there with you. I know how to play to the offensive lineman's heart. But this group in particular, everywhere you've gone, whether it was Oregon, even dating back to your time at FIU, I mean, you've been around and have done an amazing job of building the organization from the inside out. You put a high premium on attracting high-level talent along the offensive line. CeCe Maui Noah is amazing, following kind of closely in line with what we saw from your development of Penei Sewell at Oregon. So in your estimation, even though the game's evolved and it's gotten more sideline to sideline, how important is that offensive line playing up to their potential so that your offense can ultimately reach its potential?
Yeah, I'm always going to believe that it's going to start and end there. Both sides of the ball, the offensive line and the defensive line. Those guys, you can't run your offense, and you really can't set the tone of the game unless you can control the line of scrimmage. And you can recruit the best quarterback in the world, but if he's on his back all the time, and if your yards per carry are, in the hundreds, in the country, you're not going to function really, really well. And those guys typically take longer to develop. So we take a lot of pride. Coach Mirabal is the best in the business. His developmental system for these bigs is unmatched. And the combination of that and just some really intense strength and conditioning has led to some really strong, tough offensive lines. You're going to see a guy like Inez Cooper this year be one of the best linemen in the country. He doesn't get as much, attention as some of the other guys like Markel Bell, James Brockemeyer, Matt McCord, these guys, Ryan Rodriguez. These guys are real deal NFL players that are going to be heading up our offensive line. And they're going to be going against Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor and Justin Scott. I mean, iron sharpens iron's a real thing here. And, that transcends everything else as it relates to conference, to past, present, all that stuff. This is a place that was built in the trenches and has allowed us to now recruit special players outside.
Yeah, and look, everyone wants to remember Michael Irvin, but and all the incredible flash of the passing game there and the high times of Miami football. But man, there are a lot of dudes on the interior on both sides of the ball that I can remember just blowing people off the line of scrimmage regularly. Moving over to Carson, I just loved this pickup, Coach. I'm gonna be honest with you. I watched Carson. We called 4 of his games last year, 5 overall with Georgia. And I feel like Carson was unnecessarily the recipient of a ton of blame. And he didn't have his best stuff sometimes, that's for sure. But there were a lot of things around him that didn't operate as smoothly as they probably should have. And as a result, he had to shoulder that load. That's what you do as a quarterback. You get all the credit and all the blame. But I feel like you're getting a guy that has a bit of a chip on his shoulder now, that's eager to prove that he's still one of the best players in the sport. and is in the process of kind of rebuilding his imaging and shaping his legacy as a college player. So what have you seen from him in his rehab process, and what was it about his skill set that made you feel like this is the guy we need to go get?
We feel the same way you do. I think you articulated it exactly the way that we envision it. He is a highly skilled guy, and we feel we're getting the best version of him. We feel we can protect him really well, and we feel what we do offensively. We're so much of our stuff is NFL oriented as it relates to protections, our play action game, our quick game, intermediate stuff. He fits it perfectly. He's going to be surrounded by some really talented skill guys as well. We run the ball really well. We were I believe, third in the country last year in yards per carry, and that opens up things differently. And I think that it just systematically similar to Cam. Cam did some great things in his prior stops, but it just really fit what we do really well. And that marriage, I think it's going to be awesome for Carson. It's going to be awesome for Miami. He's healthy. He looks great. He's got a strong arm now. He's got a really, really strong arm, and he's really smart. He's very tied into our offensive line coach. Those guys have a complete just understanding of what we're trying to do from a protection and run game standpoint, and that's going to lead to tremendous amounts of success for our offense.
Yeah, I love Shannon Dawson. Loved him for years. You know that. I think the world of him. I love his offense. Like, it's extremely quarterback friendly, and you get the right guy pulling the trigger, you're going to be in great shape. The defensive side last year is kind of where the headaches occurred, and I watched some Minnesota preparing for this interview, and I'm like, that's very different than maybe what we've seen in the past run by your defense. So, what was it about the style that you're bringing on the defensive side that made you feel like, all right, this is the direction we need to go by bringing in Corey Heatherman?
Yeah, Coach Heatherman's defense really fits what we have recruited here at the University of Miami. We recruited to be built as a 4-down operation, guys that can really get upfield, be disruptive. And, last year we morphed into an operation that was unrecognizable. We were doing again, we're past that now. We're moving forward, but this really fits our guys. Ruben Bain is a really disruptive, explosive player. So is Akeem Mesidor. So is, Armando Blunt. So is a guy like, Malik Bryant, Hayden Lowe, Booker Pickett. There's a lot of guys that are really good. And then inside, Ahmad Moten, the pickup of David Blade. Justin Scott's been phenomenal. Dante Simpson is a young guy that's really coming on strong. There's a lot of explosive players that maybe were out of position last year playing, in some, I guess some of those movements and stunts just didn't fit what we had. And it was confusing for our linebackers and our back end to be on the same page, which really caused just some monster big chunk plays against us that really hurt us. So Corey Heatherman is really smart. He's tough. He's got a ton of energy. He's got answers to his defense, communications at a premium. And he leads the charge. He coaches it from the front to the back, and he's been awesome to be around, and we expect some significant improvement on that side of the ball.
It just feels like this move is kind of, all right, less is more. Let our dudes be dudes. Is that a fair assessment of what this defense might look like?
I think it from the inside out, but not from the outside as it relates to opponents seeing what we do. I think just the way that the terminology and communication that go with it allow us to play really, really fast. So in essence, it's digested in a more simple manner. In terms of the look itself, I think you'll see some base stuff, but you'll see some exotic stuff as well, without confusing our players as much. Obviously, we're one spring into it. We've reinstalled the week after spring ball. We've got the summer coming up. By the end of fall camp, we should have had 5 installs from beginning to end. We feel really good about where they are, where our team is right now with that, and feel really good about where it's going to go.
And another big storyline throughout the offseason has been having to replace all those big-time wide receivers. And you had some great weapons last year. There's no denying that. And there are some guys now that are just eager for that opportunity, some young guys that I know you're excited about. But your receiving core as a whole is going to be a little younger. But as we saw last year, you could be a true freshman and take over the college football playoff. I feel like that position is more capable than ever to contribute at a ridiculously high level early in their careers. So what can you say about relative youth, but overall outrageous talent within your wide receiver core?
Well, I think we actually have a chance to be even better because again, it's really young talent. It's explosive talent. They don't have the experience, so they haven't seen those things again and again and again to allow them to find those soft spots. Be as well schooled up in beating man coverage and understanding disguise coverage and whatnot. But we've seen a lot of progress, and I think most importantly, we've also added a lot of competition, both through the high school ranks and also the portal ranks, so that it's very clear to that entire wide receiver room, you're going to have to compete for every ounce that you get. And you're going to have to show up every day, both in the run game and the pass game, to earn playing time. And that's the best way to do it, right? I mean, you played in an organization that stressed that to the core, to the T on a daily basis. And that's what we've always been. And it's becoming more like competition's more of a real thing now. I don't think it was upon arrival. And now it's because we're a little bit more thick in certain areas. I think it's going to play out well. We're going to get the best of everybody. We're going to find a way to get the best of everybody.
I've always thought that healthy fear of being replaced is the greatest motivator.
Beautiful.
So I think depth and talent around you is only going to make you better. And not a lot of guys lean into that though anymore. It feels like they kind of want the path of least resistance. They want the guarantees. I feel like it's not quite as prevalent as it once was.
They can, I'm sure there's a school for those guys. I think it's
just not, near South Beach. That's fair enough. Makes perfect sense. Coach, moving to some bigger picture, you have Notre Dame week 1. I know there's a million weeks between now and then, but I've always felt that having a premier marquee game in week 1, it just increases the urgency of summer and fall camp. I just feel like the guys are just naturally a little bit more dialed in, as opposed to ramping up your schedule and allowing it to kind of get a little harder as the weeks go on. You got to come out of the gate swinging against a team that played in the national championship game last year. So how does having Notre Dame in your house week 1 probably allow your camp to maybe be a little tougher and maybe played with a little bit more urgency?
The regimen itself would not change, would never change, because we make it as challenging as we can while being smart, right? Making sure that we are getting better and that we, in all aspects, tangibly and the intangibles as well. And I think everyone in the world knows who we're playing game 1. So there really is, it's not a focal point as we enter the offseason program now. It's not a focal point as we enter our OTAs, our player-led practices. Obviously, as a staff, you're always breaking down your opponents. And you're very well aware of how prominently and how successful and how elite some of the teams are that we play, this season. But it's something that you won't be hearing in meetings. You won't be seeing attention, gravitated towards by us, as a staff. That's the players know that. You know that, man. You played. You know what's up. And so, I mean, that's what you come to Miami for, and that's what you play college football for, is to test yourself against the very best. And come 2 weeks out, all attention will be on Notre Dame. But between now and then, man, it's all about Miami getting better, getting tougher, getting in the best shape we could possibly be, so we could be the best individual, best position group, best unit, and best overall team we could possibly be.
I know you guys will be working in that direction. When you look at how you've had to approach the sport, I think you naturally would lean maybe in some ways a little more old school. Like, we want to be physical, we want to be ground and pound. But at the same time, I feel like, Coach, you've done a great job of adapting to the modern player without deviating from your core beliefs. And I think that was made pretty obvious. Like, hey, if you don't like to do it the way we do it, that's fine. There's plenty of places to play. It just won't be here. But then again, nowadays, you almost have to, at some point, kind of meet the players in the middle. How have you, because I think you've done as good a job as just about anybody, how have you balanced that, meeting the players where they at and yet still having ridiculously high expectations to your core beliefs?
I mean, we keep it simple. We do it like it's our very own son. And there are days where me and my son, man, we are like buddies and everything's fun. And there are other days I get after his ass like there's no tomorrow, because I want him to be elite. I want him to be great. So, and that's our promise to every parent. That doesn't mean you're perfect, but it means your intentions are. And that approach, we know what our players know. Our players know and understand that we are completely committed to making them the absolute best they can be, because they have some unbelievable goals and dreams that are really difficult, man. There's no harder job market than playing football for a living. And there aren't many, there's not much wiggle room in getting there and staying there. So we have to create all the different processes and and ways for them to achieve that, and so that they can get there at the best they can be and increase their value and stay as long as they can, with keeping Miami first at the forefront of the priority list. Team first, because that'll lead to everybody else's goals and dreams being accomplished as well. So it's that the balance is just being real, man. There's no BS to it. I'd be awful if I had I couldn't fake that stuff, man. There's good days and there's days where we're going to be on your ass like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah, you don't come across as the type that could put on a show. I've known you too long. I just don't see it working that way. Is it easier to sell the Miami first mentality as an alumnus, though? It has to the players have to naturally understand that the place means so much. It's not just a job. It has to mean more, and the players have to feel that. Do you ever get that sense?
I do. I get that sense, and then when they see guys like Ray Lewis and Ed Reed show up, and Greg Olson and Dan Morgan, when they see these guys show up, and like, oh my Lord, they were practicing on that same field. That's sacred ground out there.
Yeah,
that's not something that is to be taken lightly. But yeah, I think it's not a job. I mean, this was everything. Always has been everything. Always will be everything. So, and there's nothing like it. So yeah, I think it's very clear. It's very felt.
Well, I know this year is going to be a special year for you, Coach. I get the sense every year now with how you guys have reloaded and the core that you've built. It's going to be a fun one to watch. I want to get you out of here with this, though. A lot of people have said that Hard Rock has had ebbs and flows as far as environment. I can tell you this: that place rocks when y'all are rocking. Undefeated last year at home. You have a big one in the opener. You got 8 games at home this year. What do you anticipate from your fan base this year when they pack the seats there at Hard Rock to support you guys?
Well, I think our people are really enthused because they see progress. And,
yeah.
It's like myself, I was watching Miami from afar for a while ago, and man, it's time for that to stop. It's time to get on track. And that's really the biggest reason for coming back. It really was. When you played here and like you played at Alabama, man, when you play somewhere and you see it struggle from afar, you're like, it doesn't sit well with you. You want to get to work. And man, I've been away for a long, long time. And one day never, was pushing for it, but if it happened, wow, what a dream come true. And I think everyone is very well aware and sees like the steady progress and how it's building momentum. So what I expect from our fans as we open the season, for all those games, complete and utter lunacy in that stadium to make it as loud and as ruckus of an environment as it can be, because I've experienced it both as a player and as a coach. And like you mentioned, man, when that place is rocking, it's hard to match. So looking forward to giving them a lot to cheer for.
I know you will, Coach. And best of luck this summer, putting the finishing touches on the roster and getting people where they need to be and getting the most out of your team, man. Excited to see how they look.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you. Go Canes.
So we have a bunch of week 1 games that I am very much looking forward to. One of those games is, of course, the battle between Notre Dame and Miami. That's actually going to be Sunday on August 31st. I love that Sunday window has now been filled in each of the last 4 or 5 years with a high-level, highly viewable product. And this year, having Notre Dame on the road in Miami week 1 will be as good as we've seen in quite some time. We've seen Notre Dame go to Florida State. We've seen LSU and Florida State go toe-to-toe a couple times. We've seen LSU and USC last year. That was a remarkable week 1 matchup. So I just love that Sunday's been filled up. But Notre Dame and Miami in week 1 is going to be super special, but it's not to be overdone with what you're going to get when Texas travels to the Shoe to take on Ohio State. This game is going to be massive, okay? Massive. Anytime you get Texas, anytime you get Ohio State, 2 of the biggest brands in the sport, being able to tee it up there in week 1 is amazing. There's so many others that will involve ranked versus ranked matchups. Those 2, I think for sure, Miami, Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Texas, those are definitely going to be ranked versus ranked matchups. And I think in the case of Texas and Ohio State, probably looking at 2 of the top 3, 4, 5 teams in the country, according to the polls there in the preseason. The third that is likely to be ranked is LSU on the road at Clemson. That game's going to be Saturday. I love Clemson this year. I do. I think Clemson's got all the makings of a national championship contender, a ton of veteran leadership that's back, guys that have played a lot of football for Dabo Swinney, and young weapons that were good last year that might take a significant step forward here in year number 2. They're on the other side, though, is the LSU Tigers. And I think LSU, this could be their year in the SEC. It really could be. Experience at quarterback, upgraded receiver core as far as depth is concerned. The offensive line has a couple questions at tackle in particular, but this is year 2 for Blake Baker and the defensive coordinator. And I would think this defense, they're going to have a much better understanding of how they want to attack opposing offenses, and we'll get a good glimpse of that in week 1. So those are really the 3 ranked versus ranked matchups, but there's a ton of other great matchups that we're very excited about. Bama will be on the road at Florida State. Don't need much to sell this one. Florida State was left out of the playoff a couple years in favor of Alabama. So a natural rivalry that has been brewing for a couple years. It should be an awesome environment and a hostile environment there in Tallahassee when the Crimson Tide comes to town. You got Georgia Tech at Colorado. You got South Carolina against Virginia Tech. Love that matchup, by the way. I'm hoping that Virginia Tech is back and more competitive early in the season this year. Auburn at Baylor on Friday night should be incredible. Very much looking forward to seeing how that game's going to go, because I think Baylor is sneaky, and Auburn should start the season in the top 25. And it's not just exclusive to the Power 5 versus Power 5 matchups. We also have Boise at South Florida. I love that matchup. That's a really, I think South Florida's got a chance to make a lot of noise, and Boise traveling all the way to Tampa should be really intriguing. That game will be Thursday amongst 2 teams that could very well find their way into the college football playoff as the G5 representative. You got Nebraska, Cincinnati, you got Utah, UCLA. So a lot of very intriguing games that we have to look forward to. But here's where I think we might be missing the boat. I think we could do more. Now, you're going to sit there and say, Greg, you just gave me like 10 games that are really good. And I don't disagree. I'll be sitting there on my couch and or in a booth consuming as much college football content as humanly possible there in week 1 of the college football season. But what we should do, because there is no NFL, there is no competition. We own that weekend. We have exclusivity over that weekend. We should make week 1 the greatest spectacle of non-conference matchups that we can possibly imagine. And I'm talking year to year. I know these schedules are scheduled way out in advance in some cases, like Clemson and Notre Dame. They agreed just last week to a 12-game series that starts in 2027, running all the way through 2038. But what I propose is let's make sure we have the biggest possible matchups for every Power 4 team on that week 1. And if that means we have triple header on Thursday, triple header on Friday, triple header on Saturday, triple header on Sunday, triple header on Monday, then so be it. Monday's a holiday. Let's play a game at noon, 3:30, and at 7. Load it up with marquee matchups across the board. While we're getting good matchups, like I said, hear me when I say this. We don't have bad matchups. There are a lot of great games, but we can have more. And with the NFL on the sideline that weekend, it's an opportunity to kick off our season in style. And then if you want to go one step further, we've seen with success the last few years, week 0 become kind of a marquee opportunity for several teams. Georgia Tech last year kind of announced to the world that they're going to be a problem for a lot of teams in the ACC when they knocked off Florida State in week 0 over there in Ireland. Week 0 should be for the G5 and make the most matchups, most quality matchups that you can possibly imagine, put those on week 0. So week 0 is a G5 showcase. Week 1, a P5 showcase. And we can do more. So I think there's an opportunity that we can lean into with college football and making sure that when we start the season, we're starting with a huge bang where we can capture that audience that might not necessarily have an interest in college football when the NFL begins. But if we give them big time matchups and marquee games scattered throughout the weekend that are unopposed in some windows, then we can recruit an NFL fan that becomes a college fan for the future because of some of the matchups they might be able to consume week 1. Well, it looks like there's a lot of momentum building towards the SEC fully adopting a 9-game conference schedule. I couldn't be more excited about this. And I know for a long time, the SEC and the strength of the SEC top to bottom, I understand that 8 games is all they needed to punch their ticket to the college football playoff. The SEC doesn't have anything to prove to anybody. But if you look at the matchups that could be created, the rivalries that could be created as a result of adding that one extra conference game. Now, it's only 8 games overall. I mean, it's not like it's a ridiculous amount of games. You'll have 8 SEC games, SEC versus SEC games that you'll get if they decide to adopt fully this 9-game conference schedule. But it will allow us to revitalize on an annual basis some rivalries that have been lost as a result of the current 8-game SEC scheduling model. Now, some of the pushback is understandable. Some teams will have to play 4 home games. Other teams will have 5 home games. I think that makes sense. Like, I wouldn't want to play 4 home games. I'd want 5, naturally. So I understand that that's going to make things a little bit more challenging. But at the same time, we have to figure out a way to make sure that every single week you have 2, 3, 4, 5 marquee games, and adding that 9th game is important because none of us want to see rivalries like LSU and Auburn go by the wayside. I certainly don't want that game to go away. I don't think we want to see games that still matter very much to particular institutions. I don't want to see those games go away. So while we've protected a lot of rivalries, and I tip the cap to the SEC for being able to do that, you still have Georgia, Florida. You obviously have the Iron Bowl. You have Bama, LSU. You have Bama, Tennessee. You have Texas, Texas A&M. You have Texas, OU. You have Texas, Arkansas. Again, there's a lot of rivalries that have been protected, but I think there are some rivalries that need to be renewed. And now with a 9-game schedule, you'll have a little bit more flexibility to make sure those games get played on an annual basis. So very excited about the momentum that's being created here. How will it affect the SEC long-term as far as playoff? I don't think it's going to affect much, especially if the playoff expands a little bit further and they put an increased premium on strength of schedule, which feels like that's kind of where the world is going for college athletics at the moment anyways. That's what the Big Ten wants. That's what the SEC wants. They're kind of ruling the conversation in the college football playoff expansion. If the criteria changes and strength of schedule becomes the most important part of deciding whether or not a team is worthy of playoff inclusion, then the 9-game schedule makes all the sense in the world. So very, very excited that they're moving in this direction. I hope this gets locked in sooner than later. That'll do it for us here at Always College Football. Appreciate all of you for being here. We look forward to continuing to provide you with content here over the next few weeks. There's actually quite a bit of movement going on right now in college football, so we'll continue to tackle some of the biggest stories every single week. So keep it locked in here. Download the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. You get all of that, and we'll just automatically populate your inbox when we put out a new episode. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast. If you're here with us via the ESPN College Football YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe to the ESPN College Football YouTube channel, and you can find our videos there as well. If you're there, hit that thumbs up button. Really appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for telling your friends. The show's grown like crazy. We've never had numbers like this in May. We've never had numbers like this in April, and we wouldn't be in this situation if not for the support that you guys have shown the show. So for all of us here at ACF, for Mark, Jake, Jack, the other Jack, I'm Greg. We hope you have an amazing day. And remember, it's always college football. Hey guys, it's Greg McElroy. Thanks for watching Always College Football. Make sure you like, rate, and subscribe to ESPN's YouTube channel and wherever you listen to your podcasts.